Pedro from A&P-REACTS. I'm here today with the lovely Laureline. How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
I'm great. But before we get started, I want you to introduce yourself for those of you watching that don't know who you are. Tell us who you are, where are you, and what do you do, like music-wise? Like, what's your role in this world of metal?
All right, so yeah, my name is Laureline Tilkin, and I am the editor-in-chief of Tuonela Magazine. It's a Finnish web scene based in Helsinki. That's where we are right now as well. So I founded the website in 2017, and I also, like you, have this mission to support small Finnish bands. Well, Finnish mostly because I have a very small staff. So, and I also have a marketing and PR agency, Cerulean Midnight. But that's like more for artists in general. But there's also some bands that I work with, and I'm also a photographer. So yeah, that's basically what I do.
A lot.
Yeah, a lot of different things.
You're doing a lot of different things. So I thought everybody's putting their lists together. I already did my favorite 20 albums of 2019, did my favorite EPs, but anywhere you go these days, and you know this, everybody's putting their lists together, favorite albums, and now we're talking about the decade because we're coming to the end of the decade. So everybody's talking about their favorite albums, best album. I don't want this conversation to be about best albums because I think that's really subjective to whoever it is that you talk to. Like, I can ask 10 different people what their favorite albums of the decade are, and you're going to get 10 different answers, right? So I don't want us to think about this as the best albums of the decade. I want us to talk about my favorite 10 albums of the decade and your favorite 10 albums of the decade. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the upcoming releases for 2020. Like, which ones are you most excited about and which ones are most excited about? I thought it would be a really cool conversation to have with you because you review a lot of albums. You go to a lot of shows. So instead of me just talking to the camera and being like a monologue, I'd rather have somebody to talk to. And I thought this would be something cool. And it would create an interesting discussion between the two of us.
Yeah. Thank you for asking me to do this. So I'm also looking forward to finally discuss a bit more because, like you said, I'm just typing on the laptop usually about what my favorite stuff is. But other than that,
it's for me, it's a change of pace because I'm talking to you instead of talking to the camera, and for you, it's a change of pace because you're talking to somebody who's alive.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so let's get started with our favorite album. This doesn't have to go in any order. Do you want to go into an order, or do you just want to talk about, in general, 10 albums of the decade that you felt like really connected to?
I'm very bad with rankings, so I would just like prefer if it's just 10 albums rather than number
10. Sounds good. So let's go with the first album that in your mind, this is no ranking, but in your mind, give.
Yeah. All right. So one that I would probably start with is Fly From Here by Yes, the progressive rock band. I've been a
Yeah, I think I'm coming back again. Yeah, I'm back.
Are you still there?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I think it was like 98 or something. I just found out about Yes. My dad was playing the album on in the car on a road trip, and I somehow really liked it. I was 7 years old at the time. I didn't know anything about rock or metal. So when Yes released this album, it was like an album that they had written in the past, and it's very much in style of like the albums that I got to start with, to get into the genre. So even though I think a lot of people with the lineup change and stuff like that kind of maybe dislike the album, I think it's still one of the favorites of the decade for me, at least.
Well, it's perhaps an album that you ring special because it was, the experience of listening in with your dad that also perhaps played a factor into it. And since you mentioned that one, I'm going to throw one at you that to me is, I don't know, some people may not consider it metal, but to me was one of the most important, to me, I gotta keep rephrasing that, to me was one of the most important albums of the decade, and that is System of a Down, Toxicity. I absolutely love that record. It's a record that still gets played on my playlist like a lot. It hasn't gotten old. It's still fresh today. If you listen to that album today and you listen to the lyrics, they still ring true. The things that they're saying in that record, they're still, you can still apply them to today. So to me, System of a Down with Toxicity is just a record that I think it's always going to be one of those classic, timeless records.
Yeah. Can I ask when it was released?
Geez, I can't remember. I didn't put down the dates.
Yeah. No, it's just that I completely forgot that. Like, that's the thing. I know a lot of albums, but I totally forgot what's released when. So,
well, the dates I'm not gonna lie to you. I made the list of my favorites, but I didn't put the year in which they were released. So I don't have the year. I can't think of the year at the top of my head. But why, you forgot about that one?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's a really fucking good album. So I enjoyed it as well.
All right, so give me your next one.
I think the next one would be Riverside, their album Wasteland, which was released last year, I think. I actually didn't know Riverside at all, but like I got a request if I'm interested maybe in doing an interview, and then I found out about the album as well, and turns out I really loved it. So, and it was also like one of the coolest interviews I've done. It's like I did an interview with the singer and bass player, and he's just a very, very interesting person to talk to. So it was like a really good experience overall. And I also heard it live for the first time on the same day, and it was like, excellent experience.
Oh, wow. I'm going to throw something at you a little bit different from that. I'm going to throw you some Sabaton with Carolus Rex.
Oh, yeah.
I that's got to be, I would argue that that's their best album to date. You know what I mean?
Yeah, true. I think it's my favorite as well. But I feel like because at the same time they released this online game, like a strategic game, and the soundtrack to that game was Carolus Rex. So like I think that's why I started to like the album, because I was playing the game so much and totally like not winning, but
I just think like they've put out amazing records, but when you look at the decade and you look at a band like Sabaton, I think you have to go with Carolus Rex. And for me, the Swedish version, I prefer the Swedish over the English. I just think it's their. I'm not saying there's greater things ahead for them, but I'm saying as of right now, that is their best album, and definitely one of the great albums of the decade, at least for me. I cannot get enough of Carolus Rex. It's just a magnificent record. The Swedish one, I prefer the Swedish. Yeah, and I'm not Swedish, but I prefer the Swedish. I just feel like when you sing in your native language, it carries more power to it. It has more. The words mean more. You know what I mean? Even though I don't understand what the hell they're saying.
Totally.
Give me another one.
The next one, I know you really like the band, so I'm kind of wondering, are they also in your favorite album list? Is the debut album of Alien Weaponry?
Oh, wow. No, they're not on my list, but wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an incredible record.
Yeah, it's I actually discovered the band through your channel.
Oh, wow.
Because like I remember they were announced at Tuska and I didn't really know who they were or what to expect. And then Mika said that you like them a lot. So that's when I started to watch your reaction videos. And yeah, their Kai Tangata song is also one of my favorite songs of the decade, I guess. It's like it has this really nice groove to it. And
I from that album, Holding My Breath is my favorite song.
Yeah.
I cannot get enough. That song is absolutely phenomenal. The album to me is one of the best debut releases in metal in the decade for sure. If you're looking just not overall albums, but if you're just looking at first releases ever by any metal band within the decade, that's got to be one of the best debut releases. It's just such a strong, polished record. You know what I mean? It doesn't feel like a debut album. It feels like an album from a band who's been around for like forever, you know?
Yeah, it's impressive. Like also with their age and stuff like that. Like it made me feel old. So
you know what? It makes me feel like I haven't accomplished anything.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, when you're that young and you put that out, and I'm like, wow, I'm double your age. I haven't done anything with my life whatsoever.
Yeah.
It makes me feel bad. I'm going to go, by the way, they're not on my list, but I'm going to go with Amon Amarth and Deceiver of the Gods.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of Amon Amarth, and when I think of Amon Amarth albums within the decade, I think Deceiver of the Gods is probably their best one. And you know, I saw them for the first time this year live, and it was quite the experience. It was one. Have you seen them live?
I've seen them at Grass Pop, but in some days, if I get the accreditation, there's a show of them. So I'm hoping I can go there because I really looked forward to see an actual, you know, club show or like ice.
Yeah, we saw them in a small venue. It was not a festival, so I mean, not a small venue, but like, you know, like a decent size venue, and it was really incredible performance. I mean, incredible lineup of bands. And yeah, Deceiver of Gods is definitely one of my favorite albums of the decade. That's for sure. All right, give me another one.
Prequel by Ghost.
Wow.
I really wanted to have Ghost in there, but I didn't know which album to pick.
Are you sure about this?
I'm not sure. Like
I have Ghost on my list. But not Prequel. So I'll tell you which one from Ghost. But go ahead, Prequel. Why Prequel?
For me, some of my favorite songs of Ghost are on that album, like Rats and Dance Macabre. I think that's the main reason. I really couldn't pick, so yeah.
What did you think of the cover that they did on that record from Pet Shop Boys? It's a Sin. What did you think of the cover?
I love it, but I also love Pet Shop Boys, so it was like, you know, combination of guilty pleasures, maybe.
Yeah, I grew up listening to Pet Shop Boys a lot in my house. My brother was a huge fan, so he played them a lot in the house. So, but I thought they did an amazing job, and I felt that the song fit the album perfectly.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly.
So for me, I have Ghost on my list, but I have Meliora on my list.
Yeah, that was the second one. Like I just, you know, this top something, it took me a while to compile because I'm very bad with choosing things.
Well, I think the fact that you have Ghost on your list is good, because I think if you're putting a top 10 of anything of the decade, you have to have Ghost on that list.
Yeah.
They've become one of the biggest bands of the decade, if not the biggest band of the decade. It's phenomenal. These guys they just blew up, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I went with Meliora because I just feel like it's their strongest album to date. I like Prequel, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I like it, but I don't think it's as strong. But perhaps Meliora is a little bit darker, a little bit, not necessarily heavier, but a little bit darker. I felt Prequel was too poppy.
Yeah, maybe that's what I like about it, that it's a bit more like you can go to a club and you can be like, oh, no, Ghost.
You can go dancing. All right. Hit me with another one.
I also know this is an unpopular opinion, but Nightwish Imaginarum.
Wow, I don't have any Nightwish in my list, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know a lot of people prefer Endless Form's Most Beautiful, but I don't know. There's something about this album that has just like, it's so consistent from the start to beginning, and it has a very beautiful flow, and I think it's one of their best albums, probably, like musically. And then it doesn't even matter if you prefer Annette or Floor or whoever you want, but yeah.
I can't believe I didn't put that album on my list. No, I have to kind of rethink this list because I didn't put that album. I agree with you on everything you just said. I think it's one of their best albums, but definitely within the decade, their best album. I agree with that. I just can't believe I didn't put it on my list. So I'll go somewhere a little bit different. I'm going to go with Trivium in Waves. I'm a big fan of Trivium, and In Waves is such a badass balls to the wall record. A lot of people perhaps feel like it's their best album, and I don't necessarily disagree. I think it's definitely one of their strongest, definitely the best one within the decade. So I really like Trivium, and I hope they tour again soon and release another album because I'm going to go see them again. Fun band to watch live. Have you seen them?
Yeah, I've seen them a couple of times at a festival. I cannot say that I'm the biggest fan because I also don't know any of their music, basically. It's not a subgenre that I really listen to. But if you have some songs to recommend from that album, I'm always curious to give it a shot.
Start with In Waves. Start
Okay.
with that one. They played that one live. I don't think there's ever a Trivium show where that song doesn't get played. So if you start with that one, I don't think you're going to go wrong.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things about these lists. These lists are always very close to your own personal taste.
Yeah.
That's why it's hard to say this is the best. It's my best list. It doesn't mean it's the best list in the world. You know what I mean? Give me another one.
Beast in Black, Berserker.
Oh.
Because I don't know. I'm actually really proud that a Finnish, even though I'm not Finnish, but whatever, but that a Finnish band has managed to like explode in like only, what was it, like, well, they've been under the radar for some years, but in 1 year it's gone really, really fast for them. And I'm happy to see that a band like that is doing so well. And that album was just so good. And I don't know, I really love Yannis's voice. Blind and Frozen is also like, I remember my first reaction when I heard that song. It was like, I couldn't believe it. But yeah, I think they deserve a place in there.
In your list. It's an interesting album. I mean, it's their best. I mean, you only have 2 albums, but that's definitely their best album. And it was such a strong way to kick in the door and let the world know who they were. Talk about making a statement, like, we're here, Yannis has one of the greatest voices in metal. Like, doesn't matter. Just overall, one of the greatest voices in metal. I love that guy and I love that band. I got to see them this year for the first time in Montreal, and they're coming back to North America next year with Hammerfall. So I'm really excited to see that. I'm going to go into something a little bit darker, something a little bit heavier that we haven't gone yet, and that's Carcass with Surgical Steel.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're a fan of Carcass or not. I grew up listening to Carcass. So they were one of the first heavier bands, for lack of a better word, that I really got into. And if I look at the decade, Surgical Steel was like almost like a comeback album for them, and it was so magnificent. They're on my bucket list. I've never seen them live, and I definitely want to see them live. But Carcass, Surgical Steel, to me, just a magnificent record.
That is a really good choice. If it would have been like best 50 albums of the decade, I think I would have included it as well, perhaps. Yeah.
Yeah, but definitely not Trivium for you, apparently.
Yeah, no. I cannot get into it somehow. I don't know.
Right now, Matt Hiffy is crying in a corner somewhere.
Yeah, well,
All right, what's your next one?
Amorphous, Queen of Time.
All right. I have Amorphous on my list. I'm wearing the Queen of Time t-shirt.
Yeah.
But I don't have Queen of Time. So why? But Queen of Time, honestly, it's one of their best albums ever.
Yeah.
Definitely for me was my best album of the year last year. Now, why Queen of Time? Because I have Under the Red Cloud as one of the best Amorphous albums of the decade. But why Queen of Time?
For me, I never really got into Amorphous, even when the other, like the Red Cloud thingy, bad with titles, was released. I never really got into them, but then I heard The Bee, and that song, it's still in my head. Like every day, I'm listening to it, and I still cannot get rid of it. And it's like an amazing song, and the whole album, it's very beautiful. Like, it feels almost like a concept album, because all the songs are kind of like in the same line, and it feels like a story somehow, which I really like when that happens in albums. So I think that's why, yeah. but now that I have listened to this album a lot, I also managed to get more into their older work. So I think it's kind of the album that opened up the band to me.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, it makes sense from that perspective that you would gravitate to an album that you feel it was the album perhaps that opened the doors for that band for you. So I can understand that. For me, it was really between Under the Red Cloud and Queen of Time. I had to put Amorphous on my list. I love Amorphous, one of my favorite bands. And when I was looking at which album would I have to, if I had to pick the best Amorphous album of the decade, it was really close between those two, but I had to go with Under the Red Cloud. I just feel it's a little bit, for as much as I love Queen of Time, I think Under the Red Cloud is just a little bit stronger, a little bit better put together, just slightly. Like we're talking about like inches here, like millimeters, you know what I mean? But yeah, funny that we both have Amorphous on our list, and we both have Ghost, but different albums.
I thought we wouldn't have any album like in common. If anything, I thought maybe you would have put Nightwish on there.
No, I you know what? I completely like. I'm not even. My bad. That one is on me. I should have Nightwish there. All right. What's your next one? We're down to the last three.
Yeah. So the next one would be Neobliviscaris. And here I had a lot of difficulties picking which one, but I decided to go for Urn because I guess also it's the first one I listened to, even though I basically like all their albums.
You're a big Neobliviscaris fan.
Yeah, and also, like sometimes when I'm bored in life or I have not much to do, I decide to go to a show, and it happened with Neobliviscaris. I just read the description and I was like, okay, this might be something. So I went there, didn't listen to the band at all. I had no expectations. I went to the show, and I was like, when I came out, I was like, what the fuck? Like, what just happened? And yeah. I was like just blown away by how like it almost felt like I went to like a math course in high school, and like I didn't understand anything, but it was like very interesting or like so intriguing. And then when I got to listen to them more and more, yeah, it just became better and better. And then I saw them at Grass Pop while I actually knew their stuff, and I was like, yeah, this is fucking great. Yep.
I saw them with Winter Sun last year when they were touring in North America. That was my first time seeing them live. And I admit that's a band that I've discovered through the channel. I didn't know them before. And it was a band that took me a long time to fully digest and fully get into it. The first couple of times I listened to it, I thought was amazing. But it's within the metal genres, prog is perhaps the one that I'm least fan of, or was. I don't know which way is better to go. Maybe was. It's the one that's gotten me the longer to get into it. So it took me a little bit longer to get into them. So I don't know enough of their overall material to put them on my list. But I went to see them with Winter Sun, and what a live show! Like they blew me away. Like what an incredible live band. Yeah. One of the best live bands that I've seen. I mean, there's bands that you like a lot, and they're good live, and then there's bands that live just take it to a whole new level. You know what I mean? Exactly. To me, they're one of those bands that just blow you out of the water. To me, them, Fleshgod, Apocalypse, and Avatar, and Ghost. Those four bands live are absolutely just like mind blowing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Avatar blew me away. I saw them live, and they were just absolutely phenomenal. One of my favorite live bands to see. I don't have Neobliviscaris on my list, but I do have some Gojira. And I have...
Really?
Yeah, why?
Oh, because that was the least that I expect. Because I have Gojira as well.
Okay, so let me hold the Gojira for your Gojira. We'll both go Gojira to Gojira. Yeah. And I'll throw something else at you. I'm going to throw you some Insomnium with Winter's Gate.
Yeah, I expected to see Insomnium on your list, but I wasn't really sure. I thought you would maybe pick Shadows of the Dying Sun, but...
No, to me... To be honest with you, the only reason I'm going to explain to you why it's Winter's Gate. The only reason I didn't put their new album, Heart Like a Grave, on this list is because I feel like Heart Like a Grave is better, but I haven't listened. To me, for you to really appreciate a record, you need to it's like a wine. You need to let it breathe. You know what I mean? Like you need to give it some time. So for me, the album just came out this year. I if you ask me 5 years from now, what were your favorite 10 albums of this decade, maybe instead of Winter's Gate, Heart Like a Grave will be there, because I need more time to kind of go through the album and let me see if time is kind to it or not. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's the only reason I didn't want to put any albums of 2019 on that list, because I just haven't gone through them enough to really have a very well-educated opinion. So that's the only reason I picked Winter's Gate. But to me, if you take Heart Like a Grave out of the equation, Winter's Gate is just like a Picasso. So I had to put Winter's Gate from Insomnium on my list. One of the bands that I discovered through the channel, so I'm really grateful for that. So now you can give me your Gojira.
My Gojira album is, and this was like Sophie's choice, because I couldn't make up my mind which is their best album, because in the last year or two they became one of my favorite bands. So they're like, I couldn't really pick, but I decided to go for Magma.
All right, so I picked L'Enfant Sauvage, but it was between those two.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think you can go with either one. I don't think there's no wrong choices with Gojira.
No, exactly. I think I picked this one because it just has a couple of my favorite tracks, like Stranded. It's like a song really that I absolutely love, so that's probably why I picked it. But other than that, it just felt like I had to pick between two straws, and then randomly chose Magma.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I felt like if you're putting anybody who's putting a list of favorite metal albums of the decade, and Gojira is not on that list, I think you need to go home and take a shower and really rethink your life choices. Because I think Gojira, similar as Ghost, they became really the bands of the decade. Two huge bands, right? Yeah. So I just for me the choice was hard. It was between those two albums, and then I just leaned a little bit more towards L'Enfant Sauvage. I think it's a little bit heavier, perhaps a little bit more aggressive. But both of them, I don't think you can go wrong with either one. For me, it was really neck and neck. Like you said, it's like two straws, and I just picked one. So now we're down to, so we have how many bands in common? We have three, right? We have Ghost.
Yeah, I think so.
Gojira. We also had Amorphous. So 3 bands in common, just not any album. All right, so we're down to the last one. And now on this one, I'm not gonna lie to you. This is my favorite, and I think this is the best metal album of the decade. In my opinion, this is the greatest metal album to come out in the decade. But I want to hear, what's your last album that you have on your list?
Mine is actually also my favorite of the decade, because I thought save the best for last, I guess.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did.
It's Firepower by Judas Priest.
Wow, I'm disappointed in you.
Really? No, but I have a reason for it. Like, I've always been a huge Judas Priest fan, and I think with this album they kind of had like a huge comeback. Like, it's been their best album since like Painkiller or something. So I just had to go for that one.
I like that album. It was in my top 10 last year. I can't remember what position it was on my top 10 list. I think it's a magnificent album. If I was doing top 11 albums of the decade, Judas Priest would be number 11. Like, they'll definitely be on my list. But when I look at this decade and I look at the metal albums that came out, for me, the absolute best has to be Behemoth the Satanist. I honestly
I don't know what I was expecting.
What were you expecting?
I was expecting maybe you would go for Winter Sun, like Time One.
See, but this is, I think, where you have to put, in my opinion, and this is what I do when I do my top 10 lists. I think you'll have to look at the albums that bands that you love, that are your favorites, that you love listening to. But then I think you have to look at the craftsmanship, the overall picture, and take yourself a little bit out of the equation. You're not a fan anymore. You're just more of a critic, and you're looking at the overall body of work. For as much as I love Winter Sun and all of all 3 records that they've released, when you're looking at these lists and you're looking, I think you have to look a little bit deeper than just your superficial fanboy approach. Because I see that a lot. I see that specifically, and I'll tell you why I picked the Satanist, but specifically when I did my top 20 albums of the year, and people comment on the video what their top 20 are or what their top 10 are, you could tell like which genre they listen to.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. I went to a show last night and I met Dylan there. He does reviews on Banger TV, and we were talking about our favorite albums, and his favorite top 5 albums of the year, they're all progressive, because that's what he listens to. So it's not. So this is the question that you have to say: Are these your favorite albums of the year, or are these the best albums of the year? Because to me, the two things are not the same.
Yeah, totally. Like, I wouldn't say I left a lot of stuff out that I felt I should include, but I also looked at, what is a better album from a like reviewer standpoint. Because otherwise, Metal de facto maybe would have even been on this list, or Apocalyptica or something.
You're such a good friend.
Yeah.
No, I just think you have to. If you ask me, Pedro, what are your favorite 10 albums of 2019? And you ask me, what are the best albums of 2019? The two lists will be different. There will be some albums that will be on both, but to me, the list will be different because there's albums. I'll give you an example. Cattle Decapitation's new album, Death Atlas. I ranked it on my list as number 4. It's not my favorite. It's not the number. If you ask me what's your favorite 5 albums of the year, Cattle Decapitation is not in my top 5 because it's an album that I appreciate. I like. I understand the concept. I really understand the work that went into it, and because of all of those parameters, I put it as my top 4. But if you ask me my favorite 5, it'll be something else.
Exactly.
Do you see what I'm saying? Like, there'll be other bands in there with albums that perhaps are not as strong. They're not as good. You know what I mean? But they're albums that I really enjoy listening to it, and I don't get tired of it. So, and they're perhaps easier to digest. So I think those two things are different. But we're digressing here. So Behemoth, the Satanist. This is Behemoth's best album ever, in my opinion. And when a band like Behemoth puts out an album like The Satanist, to me, it changed a little bit of the world of black metal and the world of extreme metal. It was just such it's such an iconic record. It's such a it's a larger than life album. I don't think Behemoth will ever release an album that will come close to it. And I don't think they're even trying, because I think it's one of those like catching lighting in a bottle. You know what I mean? It's just it's like one in a lifetime kind of things. I just think it's the greatest album of the decade, Behemoth, the Satanist. But
I do think that a lot of like if I look at other websites and other, I don't know, big publications, it's either like between Gojira or then the Satanist.
I think it's across metal. It's perhaps one of the more one of those albums that almost everybody agrees on. In the world of metal, people don't agree almost on anything. Yeah, especially when it comes to lists. But like, best drummer, best guitar player, nobody agrees on anything. But I think Behemoth with the Satanist is perhaps one of those that has everybody's vote. Well, everybody but you.
Yeah, I have to admit that I lost a bit like the black metal genre as a whole. So I think that's maybe why I didn't include it. But also I listen to much more progressive music, so that's why this list probably is a bit more prog oriented.
But that's fair. I mean, it's your favorite albums of the decade, not the greatest albums of the decade. Now let's leave the past in the past and let's quickly talk about the upcoming releases for 2020. What are 5 albums? Well, not the albums, because we don't necessarily know the names of the albums, but what 5 bands are you the most excited to see their releases coming out in 2020. Give me your top 5 that you're really excited, and give me a little brief explanation on why you're excited about those 5.
So some are based on rumors, so I'm not entirely sure if there's going to be a new release, but I would really hope there will be a new release. So the 5th one would be Demons and Wizards. Unfortunately, I already spoiled myself, but I'm still looking forward to the release as a whole. It's like the most anticipated album for me for like many, many years, even a decade, because I mean, it's been such a long time since they've released something. So yeah, I am really looking forward to their new album. Then I'm also really looking forward to the new Epica album. I have no idea whether it's coming out or not. It's just based on rumors and interviews. But that's a band I've always kind of liked, and they haven't released any original music in like so many years. So yeah, really looking forward to that. Then Apocalyptica. I've also been a huge fan, and I've heard, I think, 2 of the new tracks live already, and it was like fucking awesome. So I'm really curious to see what the guests are that are gonna sing on their new album, if there are any, and like how the new album somewhat sounds like. It felt like it was gonna sound a little bit more like Cult. I don't know if you're a huge fan, but that was something I really liked in the new singles. Which one's that? Oh, Nightwish, of course.
Ooh, yeah. I almost forgot about that. I'm revising my list as you're talking.
Yeah. And do I have one left? Yeah.
Yeah, you have one left.
Then also, I'm not really sure if it's going to be 2020, but I'm really looking forward to the successor of Magma, of Gojira. So, but I've heard somewhere that it might be 2020. I don't know where, or it's a reliable source. I have no clue, but let's see. I really hope that the album is even stronger than Magma. So yeah, I think that's my top 5.
All right, so I'm going to tell you, I'm going to go with this. Thanks to you, now I'm changing my list around in terms. I had forgotten about. There's some of them that you're constantly hearing about it, and because you're constantly hearing about it, you're not as excited about it because you're always hearing about it. But I'm going to change my list. I'm going to put Nightwish for sure. I just got the DVD. I haven't watched it yet. I'm planning on doing that today. But definitely Nightwish. I'm really excited about this new album. See what it sounds like. I expect greatness, so I'm sure they will deliver it. So I'm really excited about Nightwish. So definitely Nightwish is on my list. Demons and Wizards as well. It should be one of those records that's gonna blow people out of the water in 2020. Definitely, they haven't put out a record like in ages. So the anticipation is brewing, you know what I mean? So I'm really excited about Demons and Wizards, and I'm really excited about the chance of talking to Hensi about that album. He promised me that we would talk about that album. So really looking forward to that. On top of that, I'm going to go with Wolfheart. They have a new album coming out in mid-March, early April, around that time. I already heard 2 of the demos. Thomas already sent me 2 of the demos. So I'm really, really, really excited about this new Wolfheart record. Then that's 3, right? Yeah, 3. Then Sepultura, they have a new album coming out. Quadra is coming out. I could not be looking forward to an album more. To me, Sepultura was the band that got me into metal. With the Rise and Beneath the Remains. So I'm really excited. The single that they released, Isolation, was absolutely magnificent. So I'm really excited about Sepultura's new album. And then last but not least, it's kind of like 2 in 1. Yeah. King Diamond / Merciful Fate. King Diamond, I just like, I'm already going to put out there that King Diamond / Merciful Fate, because I hear them. Well, I know King Diamond is releasing a new album called The Institute, but there's the word out there that Merciful Fate is also releasing a new album in 2020. I'm going to put those 2 albums as my best albums of the year already, and I haven't heard anything else yet. I haven't heard anything at all. I'm a huge King Diamond fan. So, and these are not in necessarily order. I think in terms of but for sure, King Diamond Merciful Fate is the album that those two albums are the two that I'm looking forward the most out of everybody. But definitely then Nightwish ranks really high. Wolfheart ranks really high. Sepultura as well. But King Diamond and Merciful Fate, man, I cannot wait. It's been forever since they put out any music. And yeah, I'm so excited about the new year. This year was a great year for metal. And I feel like next year, I felt that last year was a great year for metal. This year was even better. And I feel like next year is going to be even better.
I really hope so, but you never know. Like,
I know, but there's a lot of really iconic bands putting out new albums next year. I mean, I know they're not iconic, but Hatebreed also has a new album coming on next year, and they're one of my favorite bands to go see live. And if you're like willing to put your body on the line, is definitely a great show to go to. You definitely need insurance before going to one of their shows.
Yeah,
but yeah, I think it's going to be a great year. 2020 is going to be a great year, and I hope 2020 will be a great year for you.
Yeah, and for you.
Well, I'm sure we'll see each other again in Finland in 2020.
Yeah.
It was fun meeting you this year. It was fun hanging out, and we'll do it again next year.
Yeah, it's gonna be, I mean, fun summer. I think there is so many festivals already announced, and like
there's so many great bands.
Yeah, I'm also going again to Graspop this year, and when I saw the lineup, I was just like, "Fuck yeah!" I mean, it's not completely there yet, but
have they announced any of the headliners at Graspop?
Graspop headliners so far are Aerosmith, Iron Maiden, and Judas Priest. So
yeah, you got me for 2 out of 3.
And
I'm not a big Aerosmith fan.
In Rockfest in Finland, there's going to be Nightwish and Iron Maiden. So
wow.
Be able to go there as well. So let's see.
Are you going to Tuska next year?
Yes. I mean, if they give me accreditation. Kind of depends on that, but I'm hoping to. It's always been a great experience. So I hope when Antonio is finally 18, you guys get to go there as well.
Yeah, I think the plan for us the year that he turns 18 is for us to come to Tuska and John Smith.
Yeah.
We want to do both.
I've never been to John Smith, but I've heard it's a really, really good festival. And Tuska, I don't know. It's like, I'm used to Graspop, which is like a 60,000 people kind of festival, like huge bands and so much distance. Like you have to walk everywhere super far. You have to queue a lot. And Tuska is like a smaller thing, but really like cozy atmosphere and very well organized, which I always appreciate when things don't go south.
Yeah, it's hard when you're dealing with these big festivals.
Yeah.
Yeah, next year for us, we were going to go to Heavy Montreal, but the festival got canceled for 2020, which is sad.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, because we had a great time there this year. So for us next year, it's going to be Summer Breeze. That's going to be our festival, but then obviously we're going to stop in Finland to hang out with all of you guys and have some fun. And yeah, so that's our plan for next year. But every year we're trying to hit a different festival so that we can have a little bit of an experience of what it is to be a visitor to all of these different festivals. Antonio also wants to go to 70,000 Tons, so that's something we want to do down the line. Too bad we can't go this year because Winter Sun is going to be playing there, but next time.
Yeah, next time we play.
When Time 2 comes out.
Yeah.
Which I don't know when that's going to happen.
Yeah. And like I feel like if Time 2 comes out, you can also like, appreciate the album as a whole, like with Time 1.
Yeah, the only issue with albums like that is that there's so much anticipation.
Yeah.
And then sometimes because there's so much anticipation, regardless of how good the album is, it never feels like it fully delivers what you were expecting it, That's my only fear.
That's why I'm also always afraid when bands haven't released anything for years. Like, I feel like I'm always disappointed in the end somehow.
Exactly, because it's never, the anticipation builds up so much and then it never really fully delivers to that anticipation. All right, Laureline, this was a pleasure today talking to you about metal albums and all of the wrong choices you've made on your list. It was an absolute pleasure and delight. And let's do this again next year.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. I'll see you this summer in Finland.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.